The news tonight. Governor Adeleke charges new heads of service to bring experience to bear as is sworn in. Central Bank of Nigeria limit cash withdrawal in bank. Indonesia Parliament approved legislation to outlaw sex outside marriage. Good evening, welcome to the major report. Babatunde Bolatito is my name. Osho State Governor Senator Ademola Adeleke has charged the new head of service of Osho State, Mr. Anyola Yaino, to bring his wealth of experience to bear in the repositioning and running of the civil service. Performing the swearing-in at the Local Government Service Commission Hall, State Secretariat, the governor said his administration will be extremely considerate in the appointment and promotion of principal officers. Mr. Aino was appointed as permanent secretary in the state in 2012 through a rigorous selection process and was deployed to the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning and Budget. He was later deployed to serve as permanent secretary in the new Ministry of Finance following the creation of Office of Budget and Economic Development from the former Ministry of Finance in 2013. He served in the Ministry of Finance till 2016. He also served as permanent secretary in charge of two agencies, Ministry of Human Resources and Capacity Building and the Public Service Office in the Office of the Head of Service. Mr. Aino worked in several capacities within and outside the shores of Nigeria, is a community activist and former president of President's Club, Okelauron. Governor's Office correspondent Abraham Adekileku will bring you details later. Osho State Governor Senator Ademola Adeleke has described the newly appointed head of service, Mr. Anyola Yaino, as an industrious individual and a thoroughbred technocrat. The governor disclosed this while swearing in the new head of service at the Local Government Services Commission Hall. Senator Adeleke warned that any public servant who handles his job with levity will be punished as the government will reward hard work and diligence. The governor equally said that the payment of November salary for workers in the state has been signed. Responding, the new head of service placed workers' support for the government and called for constant training and retraining of civil servants. Event held in attendance, the secretary to the state government, Alhaji Taslimi Balaye, Honorable Fukela, Oba Adedokwa Bolari, political functionaries and top echelon of the civil service. The newly sworn-in core members have been admonished to ensure that the identity of Nigeria as one nation is preserved at this critical point in our history by committing themselves to national integration and unity. Acting Director General of the NYSC, Mrs. Christy Uba, gave the admonition by declaring open the 2022 Batch C-2 orientation course at the NYSC Permanent Orientation Camp at the Osun State. Our reporter, Oluwatobi Loba Odunga, now completes the story.
The over 1,000 core members deployed to Osun State for the one-year mandatory service to the nation converge on the National Youth Service Corps Permanent Orientation Camp at the Osun State for the swearing-in and official opening ceremony preceding the 3-week orientation exercise. While declaring the 2022 Part C-2 orientation course open, the Acting Director General of the National Youth Service Corps, Mrs. Christy Upa, described the scheme as a vehicle that affects core members the platform to practice what they have been taught in their various institutions, as it provides the needed opportunity to gain prerequisite experience and skills needed to start off their career paths in life. The NYSC Acting Director General, who was represented by the Osun State Coordinator of the scheme, Mrs. Olayinka Abdul-Wahab, charged the core members to take the orientation program seriously and participate actively in the course activities, which have been thoroughly and carefully put together to sharpen their interpersonal skills needed to be good team players. The acting DG urged them to flee from social vices and spreading of fake news capable of disrupting the peace of the nation.
Your deployment to states apart from your origin and also your assemblage here from diverse ethnic, religious, and socio-economic background is in pursuance of the objective of national unity.
The event climaxed with the administration of National Pledge and National Youth Service Corps Oath of Allegiance on the corps members by the Chief Judge of Osun State, Justice Oyebola Adepele Ojo, represented by Justice Obadino Lokede.
Batch 3 Stream 2, hereby pledged to follow at all times the leadership of those in authority, irrespective of their social and educational background.
The corps members could not hide their joy as they gave the ceremonial salute.
Hip, hip, hip!
Oluwa Tobiloba Odunuga, Osbc News.
The blame game between the federal government and state governors over who is responsible for deepening poverty situation in the country has been described as a diversionary tactics deployed by the political class to further impoverish the majority of the people. Human rights activists who spoke in separate interviews with Osbc noted that what the country lacks at the moment is quality leadership at all levels. Oluchi Amuda now completes the story.
Nigerians have continued to battle economic challenges, with recent reports from the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics which indicated that over 133 million people are deep into poverty. The report has thrown the federal government and the state governments into confusion as they continue to trade blames over whose actions and inactions may have pushed the country into economic crisis. The federal government, through the Minister of State, Budget and National Planning, Mr. Clement Agba, had accused the state governors of abandoning the rural communities where over 70% of Nigerians dwell. He also blamed states for abandoning rural roads and other basic infrastructures while competing to build overhead bridges and skyscrapers in their capitals for political gains. The state governors, on the other hand, accused the federal government of failure to tackle the security challenges in the country, which they noted is chiefly responsible for rural-urban migration in Nigeria and in the past 8 years. In their reactions, human rights activists, including Comrade Michael Ebofin and Comrade Gafar Lamid, stated that what the country lacks at all levels is quality leadership. They maintain that it is too late for the federal government to be crying wolf when it is responsible for the formulations of Nigeria's economic policies and had consistently looked the other way when it comes to the management of the nation's finances, especially with regards to local government funds.
He promised Nigerians that he was going to deliver. He was going to secure a nation. He was going to be a father of all, and he was not going to be partisan. And when somebody has made that kind of promise, you know that encompasses everything. It has to do with the socio-cultural, the socio-political, everything, the economy situation has to be handled and make sure that everything goes well with equal the distribution of our nation's wealth. But the reverse is the case.
When you look at the entire country at this moment, you know, the ordinary man on the street find it difficult, to cope.
The respondents spoke on the need to amend the nation's constitution and allow for the dissolution of powers between the three tiers of government, which would give way for local government autonomy. They argued that the federal government is wielding too much power through the exclusive legislative list when the local councils, which are closest to the people, are wallowing in penury. Oluchi Amuda, Osbc News.
The Central Bank of Nigeria has imposed fresh cash withdrawal limits on individuals and organizations, which takes effect from January 9, 2023. According to a new memo, banks issued today and signed by the Director of Banking Supervision, Haruna Mustafa, individuals will only be able to withdraw 100,000 naira per week from over-the-counter point of sale machine or automated teller machine, while organization can access 500,000 naira per week. Banks have also been directed to load only 200 and lower denomination into their ATM. President Muhammadu Buhari stated that in line with the cashless policy of the CBN, deposit money banks and other financial institutions have been directed to maximum cash withdrawal over the counter by individual and corporate organization and third-party check. About 50,000 shall not be eligible for payment over the counter, while extant limit of 10,000 naira on clearing check still subsists. He also ruled that the customers are encouraged to use alternative channels such as internet banking, mobile banking, apps, POS, e-Naira, among others, to conduct their banking transactions. President Muhammadu Buhari has urged the Senate to screen and confirm the nomination of Director Human Resources of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Edward Adamu, for appointment as Deputy Governor of the Apex Bank. He also requested the upper chamber of the legislature to confirm the nomination of CBN Deputy Governor Mrs. Aisha Mbenusa Ahmad for reappointment for the second time and last time in the position. The Senate President Ahmed Lawan read Buhari's letter of request on the floor of the Senate during plenary. President Buhari also asked the Senate to screen and confirm the nomination of Ambassador Ayuba Mbako from the Federal Capital Territory for appointment as a member of Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Besides, the President also transmitted the 2023 statutory budget proposal of the Federal Capital Territory to Senate for consideration and approval pursuant to Section 121 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended. President Muhammadu Buhari has urged the Nigerian Army to remain neutral and professional in their conduct before and during the elections. President Buhari stated this at the International Conference Center, Kasarawa in Sokoto State, while declaring open the 2022 Chief of Army Staff Conference. He commended the doggedness of the Nigerian Army for returning peace not only to the northeastern part of the country, but also the entire country. He expressed confidence that the renewed vigor and standard injected in operations, as well as the collective resolve and improved civil-military relations, will engender lasting peace and stability in the country. The President reiterated that the provision of security to Nigerians will continue to receive premium attention of his administration, and that deliberate action are ongoing to provide the necessary support to enhance national security. Similarly, President Muhammadu Buhari has said Nigeria will continue to prioritize the aviation security and safety critical factors to grow the industry, adding that Nigeria's participation in the Open Sky Agreement has attracted huge investment into the aviation sector. The President stated this at a public forum in Abuja. According to him, Nigeria continues to champion the cause of aviation safety, security, and facilitation throughout the continent, with the ongoing support on the comprehensive regional implementation plan for aviation security and the human rights development for funds for plans. According to the President, who was represented by Chief of Staff, Professor Ibrahim Gabari, Nigeria's focus on leveraging public-private partnership is also yielding results. He stated that Nigeria has adopted a civil aviation policy centered on liberalization and public-private partnership initiative. This is said has resulted in significant growth of the industry, including huge investment in the nation's airport, which have increased its capacity and growth. The Congress of University Academics has expressed its disappointment with the federal government, especially the Ministry of Labor and Employment, over the non-payment of its members' withheld salaries, even when the government knew the union did not call for strike action and its members were not involved in the strike action that lasted for 8 months and which shut down the university system nationwide. In a statement signed by the National Secretary, National President, and Publicity Secretary, Dr. Niyi Sumano, Henry Oripeloye, and Dr. Ernest Nwoke, Cornwall said it was wrong for the federal government to lump Cornwall with members of the Academic Staff Union of University of Brent, who went on 8-month strike between February and October 2022. The new Union of Lecturers therefore considered suing the federal government for withholding its members' salaries. Osun State Presidential Campaign Council for the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, has commenced a 2-day campaign tour of Osun State with the state chapter of the party in the marathon mobilization for the visitation. The presidential candidate will pay courtesy call on his royal on the Oni of Ife, Oba Enito Gumsi, the Oba Obokun of Ijeshaland, Oba Adekunle Aromalaran, and the Atauja of Oshobo, Oba Jima Oyetunji Odlanipekun Laroye II. They will round up the day with a closed-door meeting with stakeholders and leaders of the party. According to the chairman of the Atiku Ogowa Presidential Campaign Council for Osun State, Honorable Osbc, the state is set to host the former Vice President of Nigeria. The chairman added that Osun is a PDP state, as shown in the victory of Governor Ademola Adeleke, claiming that Atiku Abubakar will win Osun State by more than 60% across local governments in the state. The state caretaker chairman of the party, Dr. Akindele Adekunle, corroborated the position of Honorable Osbc, declaring that Osun people are set to fully vote for the PDP and its candidates. The Independent National Electoral Commission has said it is practically impossible to conduct elections and electoral activities successfully in an atmosphere of violence. It said electoral commissions in West Africa and beyond have expressed concern about the impact of prevailing insecurity on the conduct of elections, banditry, and other forms of armed conflict. Consequently, the Commission said a 9-national conference of electoral commissions and electoral experts is holding this week in Ouagadougou, involving the host Burkina Faso as well as Benin Republic, Mali, Nigeria, Senegal, and Togo from West Africa, and the Central African Republic and Democratic Republic of Congo from Central Africa. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu said this at the meeting with United Nations Office for West Africa and Sahel held in Abuja. Now to entertainment news. Made in Lagos by Afrobeat megastar Whiskey has ranked as the second song on Billboard 2022 World Albums chart, while Burna Boy's Love Damini also ranked in the top 10. Details of these and other stories are packaged by Tafika Abdulakim of our entertainment desk.
Made in Lagos released in 2020's Wizkid's fourth album released. The project received wide acclaim and has broken multiple records, including the Billboard has released the 2022 year-end list, with Made in Lagos ranking second on the list behind The Saints Proof. According to the report, the album was boosted by the hit single Hesses, Feet Stems, and Justin Bieber. Made in Lagos is the first album to spend 100 weeks on the World Album Chart, and it holds the record for the longest charting album after breaking Fela's The Black President 45 weeks record. Also in the top 10 is Burna Boy's 22 album Love Damini, which ranks 9th on the list. Meanwhile, the Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has called for collaborations between filmmakers in Nigeria and Canada, even as a promise to fast-track the co-production treaties between the two countries. Professor Osinbajo stated this in Ottawa, the capital of Canada, during a session with some Nigerian leaders in the filmmaking industry in Canada, shortly before he attended the screening of a movie titled 2 Weeks in Lagos, directed by Catherine Fasega. The Vice President, who was on a 3-day visit to Canada, applauded the team for making Nigeria proud in the diaspora, while encouraging them to keep up the good work. He added that Nollywood was an employer of labor and could add substantially to the gross domestic product of the country. On our part, Fasega, who is also the Chief Executive Officer of BAM of Gilead Production, told the VP that the co-production agreement will be of great benefit to the average Nigerian filmmaker and help build the economy. Taufikat Abdulhakim, OSBC News.
Now welcome to our sports segment. World Athletics has named American hurdler Sydney Morgan Levern the female world athlete of the year, beating Nigeria's Tobi Amusha and 3 others for the prestigious honor. Amusha Dominica Shelley Ann, Fraser Price, Peru's Kimberly Garcia, and Venezuela Lima Rogers were the other finalists. Omotayo Abdebono has details of these and more.
South Korea coach Paulo Bento says he's leaving his role following his team elimination from the 2022 World Cup in the last 16. Bento's side were knocked out of the tournament after a 4-1 defeat by Brazil. The 53-year-old from Portugal was appointed as South Korea boss in August 2018. Bento's side beat his native Portugal 2-1 in their final group game to finish second in Group H and progress to the last 16. In the meantime, Sydney McLaughlin-Levron and Armand Duplantis have been named World Athlete of the Year at the World Athletics Awards. American McLaughlin-Levron, who is 23 years, broke her own world record by almost 3/4 of a second as she won World 400-meter hurdle gold in July. She clocked 50.68 seconds in Oregon, where she also won 4x400-meter hurdle. Duplantis won the World Pole Vault indoor and outdoor double in 2022. The 23-year-old who won the award in 2020 also improved his own world record to 6.21 meters and claimed the Diamond League and European crown. Meanwhile, reigning African shot put champion Chukwuebuka Enekwechi was pleased to get his record-breaking throw in the books at the ongoing National Sports Festival in Asaba Delta State. The 29-year-old threw a 67.65 meter to claim the Amas gold medal and set a new national record as it surpassed the previous 66.92 meter record set by former African champion Christian Okoye. Enekwechi had been training the Amas throw for just 3 months as he focused on shot put, which makes the record more impressive. Omotayo Adebodun, Osbc News.
And out of foreign stories, Indonesia's parliament has approved legislation that outlaws sex outside marriage in a move critics said was a huge setback to rights in the world's most popular Muslim country after it was endorsed by all 9 parties in a sweeping overhaul of the criminal code. Deputy House Speaker Sopni Dasku Ahmad banged the gavel to signal the text was approved and shouted legal. A revision of Indonesia's criminal code, which stretches back to the Dutch colonial era, had been debated for decades. Right groups protested against the amendments, denouncing them as crackdown on civil liberties and political freedoms, as well as a shift towards fundamentalism and Muslim majority in Indonesia, where the constitution recognizes 5 religions alongside Islam. The article criminalizing sex outside marriage has been criticized by Indonesian business organizations as detrimental to tourism, though authority insists foreigners traveling to Bali will not be affected. And that ends the mega report on Osbc TV. It was edited by David Ojo. Babatunde Bolatito is my name. Goodbye.